On today's video, cards you are never going to see again. Magic the Gathering is coming up on its 30th anniversary. That is 30 years of creating and evolving this amazing game we know. But what happens to cards and card mechanics that just aren't used anymore? Do you know how surprising it is for people to see my commander deck with banding in it? It can throw people for a loop. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Looking forward to seeing your comments in the comments section. On today's video, guys, we're going to take a look at some of these lost cards and the reasons why some of these cards are probably never coming back, why they're considered a pseudo reserve list card. Alright guys, first we're going to jump to the first slide here, and that's to go over the reserve list, because although none of these cards I'm sharing with you today, are reserve list, part of the reserve list matters in this case. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first slide. I just want to jump to the bottom of this. I don't care about all the fancy writing at the top about the reserve list. Look at that last sentence. The exclusion of any particular card from the reserve list doesn't indicate that there are any plans to reprint that current card. So let's take a moment to let that sink in. For those who didn't know, reserve list cards, 572 of them, can never be reprinted. That's the golden rule kind of thing, okay, for those who collect the reserve list. But these are any card not on the reserve list may also not get a reprint. Even if you love that card, it may never come back around. I'm looking at you, Imperial Seal. There's no guarantee that these cards are coming back. Keep that in mind. Just because you loved a game card or a mechanic in the game, if Wizards doesn't like it or they find there's too many issues, they mothball it, put it in a drawer, and never look at it again. At least until they change their mind, because they've left that door open. The window's open a crack saying, we can reprint that whenever we want. We're just not doing it right now, because you never know when Wizards decides to change their minds or shake things up. Now, one of my favorite old mechanics is banding. Now, I'll pop this up for you guys a second for those who like to do some quick reading. I don't actually expect you to read this whole thing, but I'm going to pop it up for a few seconds just so you can pause the video if you want and look at that and go over it. But the basic rule of banding is if I'm attacking with some banding creatures, has to say banding on it, or bands with other, they're allowed to go as a group plus one other creature that doesn't have banding. And they attack as basically a mob. And the opponent can block with dozens of creatures or block with just one creature. But no matter how he blocks, I decide where all the damage goes. I decide where all of his creatures are putting their damage, and I decide where all my creatures are putting their damage. It's a very powerful mechanic. But it was very difficult, and the games became very long and protracted because people were afraid to attack if you had a lot of banding creatures. It is the way it is, okay? The games used to be a lot longer than they are today. Games lasted an hour for a standard game. For one match sometimes. Not these turn 4 on Arena and you're dead. Wizards has evolved the game into something faster paced. Okay? They want it faster to move the game along. Alright? But back then that's not what we had. So that is the banding mechanic, which means they haven't printed banding in 20-something years. So all the cards that have banding, all the cards that say bands with other, and there are a lot. There's even artifacts that say it. If you take a look here, here is the Baton of Morale and the Helm of Chatzuk, right? Look at that one. It says, pay 2 mana, target creature gains banding until end of turn. And the Helm says it's a mono artifact. You can only use it once a turn. It says you may give one creature the ability to band until end of turn. So even artifacts could be given these powers, okay? To give banding to creatures. But all those creatures with banding, all these cards with banding, there was cards inside Legends. There was lands that allowed legendary creatures to band. Now, I have put some of these cards inside my commander decks that I've been building, and when players see that, they have no idea, and you have to break out the rules and show them what you're doing, and they are just, their jaw drops because they're not used to it. Especially one-on-one commander, people just don't know what to do. Okay, it can be very whoa, this is really intimidating, the game just became 10 times longer than it needed. I get it. But that's what happens. Because they haven't seen a mechanic like that in a long time. Which means all those cards they're not likely getting reprinted, which means the value of those cards could become collectible later. But remember, Wizards could reprint them. Just because something's collectible and kind of awesome does not mean it's going to skyrocket in price, because again, a lot of those cards back then were fairly weak. The banding cards were not great. Those kind of artifacts, though, they can be slipped into a lot of commander decks and mess people up, especially the baton, because you can do it to multiple creatures. Keep that kind of stuff in mind if it's a card you're looking for. Super cheap, like 20 cents, but a lot of fun. Now, another one you may have heard of or seen before is Regenerate. Depending on the era of Magic in which you started out in, you just don't see these guys anymore. I mean, Thurn the Last Troll, however you pronounce it, he was epic when I first saw him come out. He can't be countered. He can't be the target of spells, and he can regenerate. Now, that's amazing. Now, regenerate is pretty easy. Regenerate. The next time this creature would be destroyed this turn, it isn't. Instead, tap it, remove all damage from it, and remove it from combat. Which means two creatures that are both 4/4 hit each other. They both deal damage. Then you regenerate your troll guy there, Thrun. He lives, the other creature dies. Yay! But it's now out of combat and it's tapped. It was still an amazing mechanic. And we don't see it anymore. It's been a long time. Instead, Wizards is kind of doing this whole thing now. I think we're starting to see it in New Capenna with the shield counter. When this creature be destroyed, remove the shield counter and the creature lives. That's just another way of saying regenerate. Except for you can't do it multiple times, which you could with the original Regenerate creatures. It lengthened out the games, and Wizards doesn't want them long. They want it short because they figure our attention spans are short and we want to move on to the next match. That's how I feel about it anyway. Regenerate didn't have to go anywhere, but it has. It is what it is, everyone. But that also means some of these creatures with Regenerate, some of the old spells that said enchant creature now gains regeneration. In another 4 or 5 years, or even less, a lot of players won't have seen that mechanic. Some of these cards will become a little bit pricier, because if they're not reprinting them anytime soon, if they've been mothballed to some desk drawer, then when somebody puts those in a deck and they keep that card, there's just a little bit less for everybody else. Almost like a reserve list card. You see where I'm going with this? The value could be there later on. These cards could be collectible and actually gain in value to the point where Wizards will have to deal with it. Because they are reprintable cards if Wizards chooses to do so, and they'll probably regulate it to like a specialty set. Now the next one here, how about this one? This one I remember seeing years and years ago, and I lost every time, by the way. Horsemanship. This creature can't be blocked except by creatures with Horsemanship. And it's a 2/2 for 3 with Horsemanship. I saw a deck with a whole bunch of these guys facing off against my White Weenie deck. The problem was, I depend on creature-to-creature combat. He's just avoiding it and running over me, and I can't block him. It was horrible. I got run over by a whole bunch of horses from Portal, from the Kingdoms. What can you do about it? Nothing. What an amazing mechanic we just don't see anymore. It's never been reprinted. It hasn't come back around. And one day, maybe Wizards will do some funky set, and they'll bring that stuff back for us. But until that point, a lot of these cards with Horsemanship are a lot of value. Because when you see them in Commander, they roll over people. You can't stop them unless you have a way of killing all the creatures and keeping the board clear. But there are so many ways of bringing creatures back nowadays, you can't keep those guys down unless you can exile the graveyard every time it happens. Amazing. But it's a mechanic we just don't see. Those cards are probably going to end up going up in value. If they haven't already, take a look at some of them, you'll be surprised. Now the last one is a personal favorite of mine. Got some good stories, and that is Annihilator. Whenever this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices N, which is N permanents, the number of permanents based on Annihilator. If something has Annihilator 4, as soon as something has Annihilator 4, like that big bad boy there, and he turns and attacks you, you say, I'm declaring an attack. I'm attacking with Ulamog, I'm attacking with whoever it may be who has Annihilator. If it says Annihilator 3, the opponent's got to sacrifice 3 permanents right away. Annihilator 6, Emrakul, you have to sacrifice 6 permanents. And when we went back to Battle for Zendikar, they didn't put Annihilator back in. They made the Eldrazi so weak. I mean, the Ceaseless Hunger is the best we got. Everyone else, nobody had Annihilator for some reason. And it was supposed to signify the world-ending power of the Eldrazi. And then they made them like itty-bitty tiny creatures that are really wimpy. It was too bad. I'm just saying it kind of defeated the awe you had when you saw an Eldrazi hit the board. Nowadays, when you see them in Commander, because that's the only place where we see them now, it's still pretty scary. You got a Tron deck out there with those bad boys. But guess what? We've gone back to Zendikar a couple times. There's no Annihilator. Wizards realized the power level of that mechanic and decided it's not coming back around. Have you seen the price of these older Eldrazi cards? $100. They're starting to creep up there. The only time they get reprinted now is in a specialty set like Ultimate Masters and stuff. Those are the only times we see them. They even had to ban some of these cards in certain formats because they're just too troublesome to work with. Amazing cards that Wizards just says, nope, we're not going to put these guys out there again. But I hope one day we see a big printing of all kinds of cards like this. But until that time, in the decades it'll probably take Wizards of the Coast to get around to doing it, these cards will probably continue to gain in value, be considered very collectible as the first OG versions of these cards for themselves. It is what it is, everyone. It's an amazing time. Magic's an amazing game, but it's ever evolving. So where these collectibles come in, where that value can be found, you got to look for it. You got to pay attention to these kind of cards that are never coming back around. Some are still dirt cheap and will probably always stay that way because they had so many printings done beforehand. But shorter versions like Rise of the Eldrazi that just had that one little tiny block, they're probably not coming back around. And all those little Ulamog Crushers and smaller common cards will probably gain in value quicker than you'd think. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. Really enjoyed the conversation. Can't wait to see your comments in the comments section. What do you guys think? What card mechanics do you miss? Let me know. I'll see you guys all tomorrow. And of course, a big thank you goes out to all the fantastic patrons on the channel, my YouTube support channel, guys. You're all awesome. Thank you so much for that support you show me each and every day. Patrons make the world go round. It is so hard to believe we're all still here. You made it till the end of the video. 12 minutes in, and you made it till the end. Guys, 1,890 subscribers to go until we hit 10K. The 10K party. We're only 890 away till we get to the rules of the 10K party. Oh, it's going to be a good time. Got to be honest. Now, our 10K card today is Disenchant. May become important when we get to 10K. Never know. It's going in the box. There you go. And if you're new to the end of the video like this, you're like, what is he talking about 10K box? That 10K box there has a lot of stuff in it. It could be important. You're going to have to go back and watch a lot of my videos to catch up on all the things you may have missed at the end of these videos. And for those who keep up, way to go, man. Shop smart, shop S-smart. Put that in the comments section because you know I love my Army of Darkness. It rocks. Hope you guys are having an awesome... It's snowing out here in Canada again. I'm here in Toronto and it's like snowing. I'm not going skiing, man. It's April. I just want to get to a swimming pool. Guys, have an awesome day today. I'll see you all tomorrow. Rockin'.